Sometimes doesn't it feel like social media? That's what it looks like sometimes, like the world we live in. And some of us are really good at creating videos and pictures and posts, and some of us aren't. Hopefully, they're a little more truthful than that one is. But it's so easy, even if we're not online, even if we're not on social. Which more like if I didn't feel like it was a needed part of ministry, I wouldn't be. So more power to you if you're not. But either way, right, we're encountering things on TV, on the internet, on news, on just in life. We're seeing people around us, right? The phrase, the grass is always greener, is not a new phrase. That's an old phrase. People were always comparing to those around you. That's just human nature, that we look around us and that we at times want what we see that somebody else might have. This is really just the age that we live in, right? Like, I can notice a pastor in Alabama and their church, or you can see somebody in Texas and the house that they have for what your rent is, and it's crazy. You can hear about somebody else's job in Seattle and think, I want that. And instead of just seeing who's next to us, we can see the whole world around us nowadays, right? It was hard enough when we could just see our neighbors, but then at the same time that we saw our neighbors, we could see often, right, like how late they came home from work to afford that new car, or we could see the fact that, that I can hear them arguing with their spouse late at night, and we can see that, okay, it's not all good. There's bad in there as well. This is the difficult world that we live in now, that we can see so much of the highlight reels of life around us. Saul in the Bible struggled with comparing himself to David. They were singing about David and how much better of a warrior David was than Saul. And this is the problem. Saul wasn't running his race and doing what he was called to do. See, Saul's job wasn't to be the best warrior in the world. His job was to be the king of the people. And if he would have been the king and let David be the best warrior, he would have been an even greater king. But instead, he compared himself to David and wanted to be what he was not. This is our life. And maybe you're like, well, I'm not a king and I'm not a great warrior. Like, that lands a little far away. But we'll take Hannah, who my oldest daughter is named after, so I like using her as an example. And she just compared herself to another woman and said, I want kids, and I don't have any kids. And as she shared her heart and her distress with God, something changed in her. And she got ridiculed for not having kids, and she began to have a desperate cry for a child. And when that cry for a child met God's cry for a prophet, her son Samuel was born. And I think something unique about her was, instead of praying for 10 kids so that she could outshine the other women around her, she prayed, God, would you give me one kid, and I'm going to give that kid in service to you. I'm not going to keep it for myself. See, she didn't look to just her own self. She looked to what she could do for God. We can be inspired by others or envious of others. We can compare ourselves or learn from them. And the message today is this: overcoming comparison. We're talking about overcoming as a church. I started this last week and just felt like, okay, God's moving in this topic of being overcomers, and so we're going to spend the next few weeks on this topic of the fact that we are overcomers. And so today I want to talk about overcoming comparison. And it doesn't matter if you are old or young, that we all do this at various stages. I was talking to some of the youth before service and I remember when I was a youth that this was definitely something I struggled with, and I still do, but it's gotten a little bit easier as I got older, but it's something we all struggle with. It's so easy to look around us and compare to those around us. But I have a feeling that as I talk to this church, as I talk to our church, right, that we have some overcomers in this church. That this church is a church with vision to help people find their victory, and we are filled with a people that are overcomers. And we are more than conquerors as a church. We are more than conquerors. And it feels like there's power on this for us that God has for our church. Now, chances are pretty good that at some point in life, you find yourself satisfied, but then you look over, or you look up, or you look down at your phone and you say, I like what they have. I like what they have. And you find yourself a little bit miserable. And you think, like, why don't they have the struggle that I have? This week I found myself sick again. And I was just like, I woke up Monday morning and I said, God, why? God, why? Like, God, I feel like I'm living healthy. I'm living a life for you. I'm spiritually healthy. I'm exercising. I'm eating well. Like, God, why me again? Like, why, God? Come on. Like, something else. Like, God, why? And this morning I want to talk to somebody that I don't know what you see around you. I don't know what captures your attention, but somebody this morning I want to talk to you and share this truth that the fastest way to kill something special is to compare it to something else. Fastest way to kill something special is to compare it to something else. It's like when you love your home and then you're thankful for your home. And then you see somebody else, your friend, gets this amazing remodel. Or your friend gets to buy a house. And you know how quickly we forget 2 months ago we were praying with you for a new apartment. And you were so thankful that God provided that apartment. And it was the provision of God that he brought it for you. But then we start looking around and we're like, well, but I want that. And instead of saying, well, remembering how much God has already provided for us. If you're taking notes, go ahead and write this down. Where comparison begins, contentment ends. Where comparison begins, contentment ends. It's never been easier in history to compare to others around us, right? And we might look and we might want what they have, or we wonder, why wasn't I invited with the rest of the coworkers? Why wasn't I invited with the other friends from school to that party? Why didn't I get to go as well? And you see your friend and you're like, man, she's on her 5th vacation of the year, and I'm over here, and I can't afford a trip to Stockton, like to see my family. You know, I got another picture of her with her book and her feet by the pool, and like, why? Right? It's so easy. Like, this is the world we live in. Like, man, we see it like, okay, she's got the $20 cocktail and the picture of her boyfriend giving her a brand new necklace, and I'm sitting at home and he's playing video games and eating ramen. Like, why, God? Why do I want that, God? It's so easy to lose contentment when we start to compare. The grass is always greener on the other side when we compare our life to the highlight reels, especially of everybody else's. And that's what online, that's what the world we live in often is. It's the highlight reels of everybody else. And so I want to start with Paul today in 2 Corinthians. We're going to be back in John for the majority of our message. But Paul in 2 Corinthians, he says this in verse 12 of chapter 10. He says, they're only comparing themselves with each other, using themselves as the standard of measurement. They're comparing themselves to each other. And they're just trying to make themselves look good. Go back to David for a second. I heard this little nugget of wisdom this week, and I was like, this is good. And this is the question: who killed Goliath? Who killed Goliath? Anybody this morning? Who killed Goliath? Easy one. David. Yeah, somebody. I was like, the Tekoa kids could answer this question, guys. Like, I guarantee you they could answer this question. They know this story well. Right? Who killed Goliath? That one's not a trick question. Who killed Goliath? It's David. The trick question's coming. The second one is this: who told us about it? It wasn't David. David told us about his sin with Bathsheba. He sang the Psalms of his difficulty with God. He wrote those down for us. But who told us about his victory over Goliath was actually Samuel in the Bible. He didn't write about that. He's like, he didn't feel a need to proclaim how great he was in that. He felt the need to just share with everybody else. This is how I can connect with God and seek him and in the Psalms. This is my legacy that I want to leave for everybody else. As a follower of God, we need to be more focused on him than everybody else around us. Hebrews, this is going to be the foundation for us this morning. This is where we're going to end. We're going to start and end here today. Hebrews 12. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. I want to point out Hebrews, the last chapter before this is like the Hall of Fame, it's called in the Bible, of like the greatest heroes in the Bible recounting what they have done. And then what are we to do after we see all those amazing accomplishments? Keep our eyes not on them, actually, but keep our eyes on Jesus. This is what we are called to do, to keep our eyes on Jesus, not on the people, not on the things, not on the world around us, but if we keep our eyes on Jesus, everything else, He'll take care of everything for us. Where you are looking, where your eyes are looking matters. Where your eyes are looking matters. Right? Where your eyes are looking matters. Where comparison either makes you feel superior or inferior, and neither honors God, right? When we look around us, and maybe we look around us and we say, I want what they have, or maybe we look around us and we say, you know what, they don't have because they don't work as hard as I do. Like, I put in the work, so that's why I get to drive this car. I put in the work, that's why I have the grades that I have. I put in the work, right? I did the thing. I'm the way that I am because of what I have done, and that makes us feel superior. Comparison never honors God. What I want to do this morning is to show us in John chapter 20, and we're going to look at 22 as well, about a little conflict. And I first ran across this conflict when I was in seminary, and it just has always entertained me when I noticed this verse and it was pointed out to me. And if anybody knows me, we're going to look at two of the disciples, John and Peter, and they're a little bit competitive. And I like that because if you know me at all, I'm not a little bit, I'm a bit competitive, if you know me. Don't play spoons with me. I've injured people. Don't, like, my wife and I, we had this game called Agricola, and you're like a family and you have a farm, and it's really intense. And especially before we had kids, we played this game a lot, and you write down your scores, and so we actually looked one time, so I know this. We've played this game over 50 times, and twice my wife has tied me. Never has she beaten me at that game. And so we don't play it very much anymore. We move on to other things that she can beat me at. But you know what? I've had to learn. I'm so competitive. I've had to learn to tone it down. Right? It turns out being a good dad doesn't mean you mercilessly like crush your children every time you play Go Fish. Right? And like you laugh, but I'm like, I know what card you have, and I want to ask, and I want to win, and I want to get it all. And then I realize, no, like, let me teach them. And yes, sometimes they need to lose, but also I can't mercilessly destroy them every time we play. They're never going to want to play anymore. So back to Peter and John, and if you're looking through the Gospels, they are like just comparing. Matter of fact, John is sometimes like, hey, I got to sit next to Jesus. I was closest to him. Hey, I'm his favorite. And there's this competition between them. And you know what, if you're Peter, I don't know if I would like John too much, because John, he refers to himself in the third person, and that's just annoying. Like, if you know anybody that refers to themselves in the third person, it's just not cool. Like, Jesus loves you, but stop doing that, please. That's just not cool. And, you know, it's like Moses in the Old Testament, and he starts writing down, so take our cue from David, not Moses, because Moses starts writing down what God had told him and all of these things and the history of the people. But then when we get to Numbers 12, verse 3, he's like, I was the most humble person around in all of the land. And you're like, really? That you're the most humble person in the land? Like, you can't write that and it be true at the same time. Like, that's only true if somebody else writes it about you. But back here to what John has to say to us and Peter has to say to us, they're like, who's the favorite? Who's the favorite? And the context of this is 3 days after Jesus died this morning, and he's supposed to be in the tomb when Mary got there. 3 days after the maybe 3.5 days after we were just talking about the Upper Room Discourse for the last month and a half as a church. But so Mary got there to the tomb, and the stone was rolled away, and the tomb was empty, and she didn't know what to think. Wow, Jesus has risen. Did somebody steal his body? Where was he? And Mary went running to the disciples to tell them what happened. And then this is the verse that all of a sudden I was like, I love John right here. Because all of a sudden there's a race, like a literal race to get to the tomb first between Peter and John. Watch this. I love this. So Mary came running, and then the other disciple, watch John, there it is, the one that Jesus loved. Again, third person John here. Like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? And then they go there, and then Peter and the other disciples, they started for the tomb, and both were running, it says. Both were running. And then it says the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. I just got to note this, guys. Like, as I'm recording my gospel of what all about Jesus, I want for all of history it to be known that I made it before Peter. I got there first. I got to see before Peter. I love this guy. And just in case you're wondering, Christ is risen, but also I beat Peter to the tomb. Right? Both were running, but then the other disciple, it says it one more time, the other disciple outran Peter. And then that's the second time. And then watch for number 3 in verse 8. It says in number 3, finally the other disciple who had reached the tomb first also went inside. 3 times he has to make us know, I got to the tomb first, guys. I made it first. I made it first. I made it first. Christ is risen, but I made it there first. I won the race to the empty tomb. I made it. And so this is who we're dealing with. We're dealing with people, just like you and I. And what I love about people and what I love about the Bible is that it gives hope for you and I. Because Jesus shows up and Jesus wants to reach them, and Jesus says, I got better for you. But if we thought it was all about John, Peter's got his own challenges. Because we talked a little bit about this last week, and then I want to finish the story from last week. So they're fishing after the resurrection of Jesus, right? They know that the tomb's empty, but then they went back fishing. And so they don't know it's Jesus, but then Jesus says, why don't you throw the nets on the other side of the boat? And they throw their nets on the other side, and then what happens? And then John says, I recognized Jesus first. I noticed him. I noticed it was Jesus. But then Peter's like, I'm not going to be outdone. So Peter's like, I'm going to take off my shirt, and he jumps in the water and rushes to the shore so that he can go and he can have a conversation with Jesus. Like, I got to, you saw him first, you got to the tomb first, but when he was actually showed up, I made it to him first. I got there first. And then the story, the power of the story for Peter here is, it's so powerful because Peter goes and talks to Jesus, and Jesus has a special encounter with him, right? Before the crucifixion, after the arrest, Jesus said Peter was going to deny him 3 times. And 3 times, I'm not going to read the story for time this morning, but 3 times Peter denies Jesus. Somebody asked him, like the little servant girl, like of all people, like the little girl comes up to him and is like, oh, did you know Jesus? And Peter's like, no, I didn't know him. And if you've ever been like ashamed that you didn't stand up for your faith, like Peter, when a little girl couldn't stand up for his faith, let alone his peers, right? And so he denies Jesus 3 times, and then we find themselves back on the seashore, and then Peter, where's that verse? Jesus asks him 3 times, do you love me? Right? Right here. Here we are. Verse 21, chapter 15. Jesus says, Peter, do you love me? And Peter's like, you know I do. Yes, I do. First time. Jesus says, and then Jesus tells him, feed my sheep. And Jesus says again, do you love me, Peter? And he says, yes, Jesus, I love you. Then feed my sheep. And then he says a 3rd time, he actually changes the word in Greek here, and is like, do you really, really love me above all else, Peter? And Peter's like, yes, of course I do. And it's a redeeming of the 3 times that Peter denied Jesus. And so if you've walked away from Jesus, if you've denied Jesus at all, I want you to know this morning that Jesus welcomes us back. We can't stay in that place, but when we come back to him, he's coming back to you and saying, hey, I want to redeem. I want to give you another chance. I want to give you a new life. And so here we are with Peter. But Peter, he turns around after this conversation, in the middle of this conversation actually. Peter turns around, and who did he see? The disciple that Jesus loved. John's recording this like, okay, I got to record that Peter wasn't perfect either. And Peter's having this encounter with Jesus, and then he turns around, and John, like his competitor, and he asks Jesus, hey, Jesus, like, I know I'm supposed to, like, feed your sheep and take care of them and do all this stuff, but, like, what about John, Peter? Or what about John, Jesus? What about John? You told me to feed the sheep, but what about John? And Jesus is like, just to go to the extreme, if I want him to remain alive even until I return and never face death, what's that to you? You got your own job in front of you. You got your own task in front of you. Why are you worried about John right now? I think about this story, and it just reminds me of how human we are, because in the middle of it, sometimes we can be so blind. Like, I look back at this, and I think, Peter, Jesus was dead for 3 days. You got to the tomb, and it was empty. You went fishing because you were so frustrated and confused, and you didn't know what to do. And then you show up at the feet of Jesus, and then he reminds you and redeems you denying him 3 times. And in the middle of all of that, instead of just being like, this is a great moment to be in right now. Like, it's not all gone. There's hope. It's a great moment, and in the middle of that great moment, Peter's like, hey, what's going to happen to John? I'm worried about him. I'm worried that he's going to outshine me. Man, that's human. We do the same thing. And Jesus is like, Peter, as for you, follow me. Your assignment, follow me. Your lane, feed my sheep. This is what I want you. Feed my sheep. Don't worry about him. Your assignment is feed the sheep. And we have to understand that we cannot faithfully follow Jesus if we are worried about what other people are doing. We can never be fully who Jesus has called us to be if we're always looking over our shoulder saying, well, what about them? Or why can't I have that? Why do they have that? Right? But we have to be focused on him. Jesus says, as for you, follow me. Your assignment is follow me. We can never fully follow Jesus if we're always comparing ourselves to somebody else. This is his call for us. No amount of anything will be enough for us. It just won't. No amount of blessing or money or relationship or accomplishment or fill in the blank, whatever comes to your mind, none of it will ever be enough. What is only thing is enough that God created us is him, is relationship with him. That's what we were created for. That is the only thing that will ever satisfy the ache that is in our bones and in our hearts and is in our minds. The longing that is in us is only ever Jesus. There's never enough in this world otherwise. You can't. There's no external win that will ever satisfy the internal longing that we have. Am I worthy? Tell me, am I worthy, God? Did I do good enough? Do I belong? Did we win the popularity contest? There's never enough outside of us to satisfy. Only Jesus satisfies. So I want to give you this question: who or what will define my worth? Who or what is going to define your worth? Is it going to be a thing? Is it going to be money? Is it going to be a person? Is it going to be other people? Is it going to be the internet? Is it going to be, what is it going to be that defines your worth? Or is it going to be Jesus? Because he's got something to say to us, and it's a good thing. And I think this is the challenge. I think sometimes we get so ashamed that we're hesitant to lift up our eyes to him, like that verse in Hebrews calls us to do, to keep our eyes focused on him. We're hesitant because we feel like if we raise up our eyes to Jesus, it's not going to feel good. It's not going to be good. We got some shame in us. We're a little bit like Peter before Jesus kind of redeemed that moment. He's like, man, I just denied Jesus 3 times, and here I am, and I did get to him first, so I got that in my book in my favor. But I denied him 3 times, and I'm here, and we don't want to look him in the eyes because we're afraid, we're ashamed. And the reality is, he just wants to give us a big hug and say, I love you. I got good for you. Keep going. You're loved because you are my child. You are worthy because you are created in the image of God. He is the one that is to tell us who we are. He is the one to define our worth. And we can't compare ourselves to other people. We are to only compare ourselves to what God says for us. So that is a question worth asking. One of my life verses is Ephesians 4:1, and Paul quotes this to some of his other churches as well, and he says, I live a life worthy of God's calling? That's the question to ask. Am I living a life that's worthy of what Jesus has done for me? Because he went to we just sang about it. He overcame death for us. He overcame sin for us. He went to the grave for us. Am I living a life now that's worthy of what he has called me to, what he has given for me? Am I living a life that is worthy of him? Am I living a life that is worthy of him? If anything other than Christ defines our worth, it's not good enough. And it's always going to leave us empty and wanting. We'll never win. We'll never get enough. So back to Hebrews. It says, therefore, right, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. There is a race for you that God has marked out for you, that has laid out for you to live a life worthy of the calling that he has placed on your life. You get to live a life that makes a difference, that's worthy of that. And let us run with perseverance, Hebrews is telling us, that race. As in, not just when we feel like it. Not just sprint and then I'm tired, so I'm going to sit down. But with perseverance, we run the marathon, not giving up until we reach heaven, until we reach the end of the race that's marked out. And we stay in our lane, we fulfill our purpose, not looking over and I want that one or I want this one. This is the one. The one that God has put before me is the one that I have. Just like Peter is called to run his race of feeding the sheep, and John is called to run his race of building the church in the way that God's called him to build the church, their way. We're not supposed to be Paul when we're actually Peter. We're not supposed to be Hannah when we're actually Esther. Whoever you are called to be, God has called you to your own unique calling, and you need to run your own race. And that is the only way that we actually find fulfillment and satisfaction. Because God has created us with a purpose. And when we start to find and live out that purpose, that's how we get to live a life. And we go to bed at the end of the day and we say, oh, I'm thankful that I get to do what I get to do. And I don't have an empty hole in my life anymore. It's filled. Sure, there's some things I want in the world. It's okay. Pray for those things. Seek those things. Work for those things. But at the end of the day, I also get to go to bed knowing, you know what? I'm satisfied because I'm living the life that God called me to live. I'm running the race that he is calling me to run. You run your own race. All right, so 4 tools. Actually, no. 1 Corinthians 9 first. It says, so with purpose in every step, run toward the divine purpose of God. Because you know all runners run, but only one gets the prize. Run in such a way to get the prize. There's some power in that. Don't just run to finish the race. Some of us are running to finish the race. Just get to the end. Just survive. But instead, he's telling us, I've got a calling that's bigger than that on your life. Not just for Pastor Austin, but for you too. There's a calling on your life that is greater than just getting to the end and surviving and maybe enjoying a little bit, maybe leaving a little bit of a legacy. There's a greater calling that God has put on your life. Run and live in such a way that when you get to the end, you get the prize, not just that you get into the gates of heaven, right? We get in by the blood of the Lamb, but there is more for us based on what we have done and how we have lived in this life so that we live with purpose every single step. So I want to leave us with 4 strategies for overcoming comparison this morning. 4 strategies for overcoming comparison. The first one is gratitude. When you are thankful for what you have, it is hard to be envious of something else. The practice of gratitude is something over the last few years that has transformed my life. You've heard me talk about this before. It's transformed my life. When we are thankful, it changes everything. Even those outside of the church, like psychologists, can acknowledge that this is helpful. That when we're thankful, and when I thank God daily for what is good. I go to him with what's hard, but I thank him daily for what is good. Maybe it's just the sunshine, because that's all you got today. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's your apartment. Maybe it's the job that you have. Whatever it is, thank him. Thank him. Because he's taken care of you. He's blessed you. There's good in your life. There's good in your life. So number 1, gratitude. Number 2, put in the work. Put in the work. Whatever when you work for something, it's easier to be thankful, right? When I cook dinner, it tastes better than when Pastor Allie cooks dinner, and not just because I'm a better cook than her, right? But because sometimes it's nice to just get and take care of. I admit, sometimes it's nice. But there's also when we put in the work. I made Indian food this week, and it's like a couple hour process to make really good butter chicken. And it's so good. And it just tastes so much better than the restaurant because I put in the work. And I figured out the recipe that actually tastes like really, really good. And I put in all of that work, and it's so much easier to have the gratitude because I put in the work. So number 3, be generous. It's a joy to receive, but it's so much greater to give, right? It's so much easier to be thankful when you're generous. And you know what? Here's a reality. We want our money to win for us. And so when we are generous with other people and then we see them winning or we see a return on that investment, man, that helps us be thankful. That helps us keep our eyes on Jesus and not us. One of the things that we've set apart from the beginning as a church is we said, we don't want to just keep it all for ourselves. In fact, our elders met on Monday and we said, hey, our 5-year anniversary is coming. How do we give a bunch away for our anniversary? Not just have a big party. We're going to do that. But how do we give a bunch? Like, who is God calling us to be generous with as a church? And so we were praying through that. Okay, who and how can we be generous around us? As a church, we said from the very beginning, like, we're going to give away. We have given tens of thousands of dollars to help other churches and to help city team and help foster the city and help those in need in our city. Like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars because we know that it's not about us. It's about God's kingdom. It's so much greater than just our church. And that we know that we could have such a greater impact than that if we invest in all of the churches and all of the ministries, that there's going to be so much greater of an impact we can have than if we just keep it all to ourselves and try to have the biggest church we could possibly have and have the most, here that we're called to have, right? And number 4, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. This is kind of the thesis this morning. Keep your eyes fixed on Him. Keep your eyes fixed on Him. Not around us, not above us. Keep your eyes fixed on Him and Him alone. And so this actually leads perfectly. I didn't even plan this, and then as I was going through, I said, oh, this is perfect. You know what starts today? You can start it tomorrow if you want. That's okay. Our 21 days of prayer. We're praying and fasting for 21 days leading to our 5-year anniversary so that we can thank God for all that He's done in these last 5 years, and then we're asking Him to increase in the next 5 years, that He would do even more. But I want to invite you to be a part of this because it helps us keep our eyes on Him. And I want you to think about what can I do, maybe what's taking my perspective away from Jesus. And let me cut that out, especially for these 21 days. And then let me replace it, because that's what a fast is. Band, you can come back up here. This is what a fast is. It's not just, I don't eat food, right? But that I'm not eating, and then I'm reminded of God, and during that time, I'm looking to Him. Maybe you're not going to look at social media for the next 21 days. I encourage you to also, give up some sort of food, right? Somebody was like, I'm giving up rice. I love rice. I'm giving up rice. Yeah, some of you know, we got some Filipinos in this church and some other people in this church, that's hard. That's okay. And so, hey, I'm going to give up rice and I'm going to do this thing. And you know what? I'm going to, in the morning, I just grab my phone and I just want to just read or look at a couple things. I'm going to take that 10 minutes and I'm going to pray instead. I'm going to read my Bible instead. And that's going to just set me up so that my eyes are fixed on Jesus and my eyes are not fixed on anything else in the world around us. My eyes are fixed on Him. So I invite you, sign up for this so that we can be praying for you. Sign up for this. We'll send you some prayers for our church. It's going to live on the Connect page. Like I said, you can start tomorrow. You can start the next day if you need a day to figure it out. But, Jesus tells Peter, this is your lane. This is what I want you to do. I want you to feed my sheep. Just as a church, this is what our strategy is, that we are called to raise up a people that would find their victory. I'm gonna share a bunch about this on our 5-year anniversary. But this year we resynced into our vision, and we said 4 words. It's a longer vision, but kneel, stand, walk, and fight. And I said, how do we even narrow this down even more? Maybe you're new around here and you're like, okay, what's this church about? This church is about helping you find your victory in Jesus, because it's waiting for you in Him, not just with your own strength, but in Him. That's where our name Tekoa comes from. The people of God marching out and worshiping Him as He called them to do, so that they didn't even need to fight the battle, but they could be victorious in the battle that was coming for them, and God took care of it for them. Right? My role as I lead this church is not to grow the largest church in all of California, although I do pray for our church to grow. Right? So what do? We give money, we help church planning, and I help give advice to other we are about the kingdom and not just us. Together, that we're going to grow bigger than any of us could ever hope to be. Our role is not to have, and maybe this will change, but our role is not to have the greatest outreach and homeless ministry in all of San Jose. Although as a church, we are called to serve our community and do those things. But we also partner with City Team because they're way more equipped to do those things than we're equipped to do those things. And so we partner with them to help them. So we know what is our part. What are we called to do? What is God calling us to do? This is what we are called to do. Our vision is to raise up disciples that would be victorious in the battles that they face in their life. Our vision is to raise up a people that from a place of worship, they would be able to stand before the presence of God so that they can understand how they're supposed to walk, and they can go in faith to see the victory that God has for them. And then together we're going to fight to see God's kingdom come to this city, because this city needs to know Jesus and who He is. And as you live your life, I want you to just keep your eyes on Him. Say, I don't care if the grass is greener over there. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maybe it is, but I don't care, because my eyes are fixed on Him, and you know what? He's pretty great. You know what? He's done so much for me. You know what? He is good, and He is good for my future. I'm going to keep my eyes fixed on Him. You're probably not called to be a pastor like me. Maybe you show up every week at Tekoa Kids and pour your lives into a small group of kids that one day you don't know the significance that is going to have as those kids exponentially multiply what you invested into them. That's running your race and what God has called for you to do. That's your race. You go to work this week and you just start, hey, I'm going to live my life. I'm going to work with excellence. I'm going to bring the principles of what God has taught me. At a meeting this week, and somebody was saying, yeah, the leadership principles you've been teaching our church and implementing, I started implementing that on my team at work, obviously not with the Bible verses, but I've been implementing that, and it's shifted the culture in my team, right? That you're living out your purpose and what God has called you to do in your lane, at work, at home, at school, in your neighborhood, in your church, in all of those things, your purpose, whatever it is. Maybe you don't know what it is. As part of our job as a church is to help you find that and help you live it out. It's literally what our mission statement is. Help connect you to God so you can find and live out your purpose. That's what our church is about. But you cannot win anybody else's race. So what do? Wake up every day with your eyes on Jesus, on Him. Who or what will define your worth? Jesus. He is the one who created you and has called you and is a purpose for you. You've got a mission. And you have the ability to accomplish it in Him. Run with every step with purpose the race that He has laid out before you so that you can receive the crown, the prize at the end of the race. Would you pray with me? Would you pray with me? God, we pray this morning, Lord, through the power of your Spirit, through the access that we've been given through the sacrifice of Jesus in our lives on the cross. God, we come to you. God, I come to you, and I pray that you would help us keep our eyes fixed on you, Jesus. I pray this morning for anybody that has felt, maybe even this week, maybe this morning even, that they feel less than or inadequate as they look around, would you know the truth of what Jesus says to you, that you are his child, you are a child of God, that you are loved by him, that you were created on purpose for a purpose, and he has got great things in store for you in your future. Jesus overcame the world so that we could have peace and victory. God, I pray that we could fall so deeply in love with you. I pray over these next 21 days as we're praying, as we're fasting, as we're seeking you, would we fall so much in love with you that the things of this world just fade away. I don't know what color the grass is over there. I don't know what kind of car they drive. I don't know what kind of house they live in, because my eyes are on him. And it's a good place to be. Help us keep our eyes fixed on you, Jesus. Help our eyes just stay fixed on you. God, we thank you. Jesus, we thank you for coming to the cross for us, for dying for us, for raising for us. And Jesus, we are committed to live a life for you. Some of you here right now, and I just felt as I was preaching this morning that all that stuff about purpose was not in my notes this morning. But there's some of you here that you're really seeking that. I feel empty. I feel lost. I don't know what my purpose is. Maybe you've even been in the church a long time and you're like, I've done some stuff even for God and for the church, but I feel like there's something missing. I pray right now that the Holy Spirit would just be speaking to you of who God says you are, what he has in store for your future, what he has called you to, that you ought to have the boldness to walk in faith, whatever that is. That there are some big callings in this room right now. There are some of you with callings in the workplace. There's some of you with callings in ministry. There's some of you with callings in this church. And some of you feel like, I could never do that. In Jesus, you are an overcomer. In Jesus, you are more than a conqueror. In Jesus, you can. So God, would you pour out, Lord, your gifting this morning? Would you pour out the grace of your Holy Spirit this morning? Would you help us live in faith and in boldness, Lord? We look to you, Jesus. We look to you. Amen. Let's stand together. We're going to worship him this morning. Let this be our declaration that our eyes are on him, that he is Lord of all in our lives. Let's look to him.